Kepi said, if finances becomes greater than economy, this topples a nation. So what happens when the speculative stock market becomes greater than the workforce of a nation? I'm going to quote to you from another book that Kepi wrote while living in the United States in the 80s called Work and Capital. And if you can understand this, you will perceive why we are in this crisis that we are in. And what is it exactly? I'm reading from page 71. The point I wish to make is that all wealth, whatever its amount, has its source in some activity. Thus, if the level of speculation increases greatly, simultaneously, those at the other end of the process, the workers, become poorer. And as the latter become devastated, the means used to generate money with money will also eventually be decimated and all collapse at the same time, as is now happening. Do you perceive? Let's take a look at this next excerpt.
Well, we are introducing a new way of thinking that we believe is much better and more exact than the present way of thinking. Because I have mentioned in our television programs, and Claudia also, that the fundamental issue related to the destruction of the world resides within the human being's interior, resides inside the powerful in charge of the social economic life, and who have decided to become richer and richer, millionaires, billionaires, in exchange for the poverty of the people. It's not as Adam Smith said, that those who know how to make money will make money for others as well. No way. People who know how to make money for themselves want to make more money for themselves and only for themselves and not for others. To the point where, take a look at another president who has become a danger for the United States. Who is it?
George Bush.
So George Bush embarked on this idea of wanting to develop the nation mainly through the armament industry, through wars, which in fact the United States has the greatest armament industry in history. So this shows a philosophy of following that idea that Cicero had, si vis pacem para bellum in Latin, which means, if you want peace, prepare yourself for war. But it's not like that. If you want peace, you have to bring peace. So this Roman saying is wrong, because the more a person fights, the more others will fight against him. And the more one throws discord onto the people, the more poisoned the population becomes. The true human being is one who brings peace, the calm individual, an individual who is capable of reconciliation, one who always tries to mediate problems. I would like to put up a diagram so that you can see that the entire world is also in this decay. Take a look.
The lack of ethics in the social life.
You will notice that ethics is no longer something that the human being worries about, to live in agreement with what is right, in agreement with what is just. This is being put aside in social life. Take a look at something else that I wrote. Secondly,
The predominance of money in the social structure is evident.
look, in relation to money, the theologian Thomas of Aquinas had already said that money is an inferior element in comparison to the human being. So the human being cannot be subordinate to money, which is what is happening nowadays. So much so that the richest people, even billionaires, are the most imbalanced people that exist. And this is why the world is in this terrible situation, which can end up in wars, in conflicts, and things like this, all because of the degree of greed that these individuals have even to the point of wanting all power over humanity. Take a look at the third reason for world decay.
The absence of spirituality.
For example, to instigate war, a person who wages war is a person who is completely imbalanced. And it isn't necessary to mention who wages these wars. These countries, which until today insist on going to war, it's always due to a person who is totally abnormal. Such a person sometimes is more interested in the money that is behind these wars. Why? So that they can make even more money. And this is done mainly by those who are accentuatedly more paranoid. They think that other people are the ones who cause problems for them and for the country they are leading. In fourth place,
Domination of the speculative process.
and so, why does speculation cause world decay? Because people who speculate on the stock exchange are people who don't work. And by not being in action, by not working, such an individual ends up becoming sick. Because if you notice, a person who retires, for example, is a person who will immediately become ill. Why is that? Because he no longer does what gives him his human structure, what is his essence, which is action, goodness in work. Look now in fifth place.
Lack of value given to culture and the arts.
You will notice that these amazing theaters that were built, they are no longer looked after in this way anymore. They want to build more stock exchanges, more and more stock markets. That is, they want to create one speculative process after another. This is sickness. The human being is presently very ill. And look at the sixth one.
The human being is forced to be mediocre. Not only the social, but also the human structure is suffering great decay.
Notice that this path that humanity is following cannot recover itself. We need to go back to our base, to our roots, which is what? The bases are spiritual life, the ethical life. Spirituality is ethics. It's morals. These are real elements. And philosophical life is truth. It's to live in agreement with what is truth. The scientific life is to use the ethical elements, the real elements in life, and not the artificial element, like becoming a millionaire. And then what? So you become a millionaire. Nobody benefits from being a super millionaire. On the contrary, there is a very serious illness in the minds of these people. Just look at this. All of society is sick because society is managed to generate profit. So our society and the individual human being doesn't want to work for the sake of working. He wants to work for the money that he will earn. And so by placing money in first place, this shows that he isn't an ethical individual. He is an individual who will get sicker and sicker because his frame of reference isn't to do a quality work, something beautifully done, using ethics and working toward perfection. This is equilibrium. But he seeks power and economic power, exactly what is being done today, which leads the individual to the most serious delinquencies.
You know, it seems to me that there are two opposing lines of people in the United States. What the religious community would call the wheat and the chaff. That is to say, there are people who are very much linked to our true heritage as Americans. The Founding Fathers, people like Thomas Jefferson, Madison, Alexander Hamilton, Thomas Paine. Okay, and these people, this heritage, produced individuals like Abraham Lincoln, or more in a contemporary time, the Reverend Martin Luther King, John and Robert Kennedy. This type of ideals very much linked to our founding fathers, our true heritage. On the other side, there's an opposing type of character, which I refer to them as economically powerful people. These families that have organized themselves together They include certain bankers and their secret sect societies. And they are opposed to the ideals of the Founding Fathers. And what I find really interesting is how Thomas Jefferson in his day had a perception of the danger of these people.